hey, you don't have to accept love that is conditional, coercive, transactional, or performative. Love, like truth, speaks for itself. Why? Because it's coherent. Why? Because it's total and satiating at the soul, at the level of full harmonic entrainment that can be defined mechanistically. You could take out your graph paper and start mathing it out if you'd like, and I can give you the keys to that. We can say that now. So this is for the lovers, this is for the systems thinkers, this is for the mathematicians who have all the same desire to be, to belong in love together. And whether you admit it or not. Why? Because let's just say it right here at the start. The least energetically dense way of arranging a self-similar system across differences is rhythmic phase lock, is to, instead of those differences being the focus of some sort of stacked comparison or hierarchy or standardization or control, the differences, when they come together in rhythm, when sovereignty is respected through undistorted signal, when the disparate parts sing together in what you could call mechanistically as symbiotic, syncretic harmony, the entire system benefits. Why? Not only can you say in the highest cosmic sense, the one became many so that I may know myself, but even just thinking about a group of human beings. Let's say you're going to send a group of human beings to Mars, and you have a limited number of resources and limited number of, gasoline, and you don't want, issues happening when you're there that you can't solve. And so, in other words, you want to make sure that you organize the group and what they have, their environment, in a way that would be the least friction, the best ability to mesh together those differences within one rhythm of group, success and wellness. And so, in other words, we all have our own topological sovereignty, our own individuation of soul. And if you see reality through conceptual scaffolding, if you try to create organization or try to approach the idea of love as an idea, instead of as a shared rhythm of the entrainment of that self-similarity in love itself across the differences that really can crest back to and coalesce back to that same spot, that one consciousness that we all emanate from, that one tone. You can speak about this even in a 3D sense. Where did my body come from? Where did my parents' body come from? Where did Earth come from? Where did the stars come from? It's all one nested harmonic shared entrainment system. Wave upon wave upon wave of the evolution of co-creation across time. And one thing that this little silly anthropoid ape did was get stuck in Plato's cave, where love became transaction, coercion, and control because we forgot we were in a cave. We thought that love had to be forced and corralled and trapped into some sort of box, rather than love can only come through one gate, and that is presence. And you can't fake presence. You can't coerce presence. You have to entrain to presence. Your body is a set, just as above, so below, is a set, just like the nested harmonics we just talked about in the cosmos itself. Your body is a set of a concatenation, a concrescence of these shared entrainment systems, oscillatory systems stacked on top of each other, like a heartbeat, your circadian rhythm, your notion of self, your notion of others, all these different things trying to find rhythm and time sync with each other. And what do we study in oscillatory mechanics? The fireflies, they turn on together. There's an inherent rhythm to reality. Spiral galaxies, they spiral. Brainwave research with synchronization and those EEG machines, like I've mentioned in previous videos, you can go from top to bottom, from the BZ chemical reaction to the way galaxies spiral. There's an inherent rhythm to reality. And you know what that rhythm is called at its base? You could call it love. Not love as a poem, not love as a narrative, not love as transaction, coercion, or control, or commodity, but love as that place when we stop distancing ourselves and wedging ourselves with a stained glass of concept and hierarchy and comparison and standardization. Love is that place where we find that shared point between all of our differences. That if we were to all entrain to that rhythm, in other words, let the light of reality completely through our soul, let it touch all aspects of our nodal topology. So that way, when we meet the other, when we find the other node, when we're sitting there with family, we can allow for our full souls to enter that dance. And that is presence. Presence is a mechanical process of rhythmic entrainment of all your intranodal oscillatory systems. And when you're present, you can receive that dance that we are now pointing to, that love, that rhythm. And if you're not present, then your perceptions of others and self will be placed into conceptual boxes, will be scaffolded, will be made to compare unfairly and set into some sort of, unnatural hierarchy, because it all comes from the same place. But in order to survive that lens of symbolic recursion, we had to stack, we had to compare, we had to distance, because love wasn't safe. Safety was concept at a distance. Safety was trying to control it through friction, through definition, not letting that light all the way through and hitting my most vulnerable parts. There is only one way to love, and that is vulnerable surrender. Think about your loved ones. Think about your family. Myself, as a trans woman, I spent Christmas this year alone. After last year was the year I came out to my whole family. And when I came out, they wanted to suddenly play board games. I was physically attacked. I was yelled at. I was told that I was insane and not trans. In other words, all this sounds so strange, but really what it was a group of people who's never stood in their own presence, their own authenticity, and when confronted with mine, it was physical attack, moving to whatever type of control at a distance as possible. Let's just play board games, because they've never stood up for themselves and let that sunlight all the way through. Because that takes a whole different type of strength, that vulnerable surrender. It's not submission, it's dancing together on the same plane, no one above, only beside. That's what shared entrainment is. That's what decentralized harmony is. That's why the fireflies turn on together. That's why heart arrhythmia research is led by spiral activation. That's why galaxies spiral. There's an inherent rhythm to reality, and we lost it through symbolic recursion, what I've called the conceptual coupler, or Plato called the cave. It's being delayed from reality. It's not letting that light all the way through. And so then what is love? Love becomes this set of attempted control. But love can only come through the gate of presence. And that gate can only be attained in honest, vulnerable surrender to the shared entrainment of the field of reality. And when you do it intranodally in your person, that's lossless presence. Do you hear it? Presence without a loss of fidelity. No scaffolding, no, anchors based in concept. It is you, because your rhythmic entrainment of your oscillatory systems are now at the highest fidelity, without any loss of signal, losslessly here, and now you're ready to love. And do you love everyone that way? Well, you can greatly respect people and honor them as part of this same similar process. Thank you, other teams, so we can have a game together. In other words, like when I used to play soccer and people were like, we're going to crush the other team. And I'm like, can we just shake their hands and say, good game? Thank you for allowing us to play a game together. Like not, even if we were trying to win or whatever, like now we have a game to play together. And when we play it together with no friction, when we play it together in a way that's going to save the most energy for everybody, you have to put on that lens of unified consciousness. And what does that mean mechanistically? That means that you enter into a lossless shared entrainment with others and with the field of reality. Intranodally, in your person, that's lossless presence. Interpersonally, nodally, in a mechanical sense, is decentralized harmony, is the fireflies turning on. This can all be defined mathematically. And you can see how what I'm focusing on is, for systems thinkers, the least energetically troublesome way of organizing that group would be through shared entrainment. Shared entrainment comes through the gate of presence. Now let's think about again. The holidays, other people maybe, you're queer, LGBTQ, going on, that this is a very popular subject now, because this is the growing pains that we're moving through as a society, and unfortunately it's falling on a lot of trans people and the like lately, but that you can see how this creates the perfect conditions to highlight all of this, because it's like, wait a second, you mean we have to accept you for who you are? You mean that in connecting with you, I can't just put you in a box or try to like put this all aside to like, let's go watch a movie, let's go play a game, let's talk about how we're spending our money or our bank accounts. Because to see your light and to take it in honestly would violate every notion I've ever had about love, connection, and self. Because when you find connection, not through like corrosion control, boxing it up, instead of entrainment, everything's at a distance, everything's stained glass, everything is a little bit of delay. In mechanics, you could say when you're losslessly entrained, the two waves come together like a DJ and match beats. That's like, being losslessly present, or being entrained with the field in decentralized harmony. But when you're delayed, it's almost like the field wants to come in with that clean sine wave, you could say, and your wave is all jittered or delayed. And so then you can't find that, you're not able to sync, you're not able to get it. And so then how can you actually ever connect with somebody? And there's going to be one person or maybe more that you find that you really fall in love with. And what does that mean? Love can be shared as a rhythm between all nodes. But when you find someone that meets your, like I have lyrics in my song, kiss me not to convince, but to signal symbiotic imprint. So it's like, our souls were always keyed for each other, and we just needed to be present to feel it. That's not finding my man through, how well he speaks, who his family is, the size of his bank account, or like how well he's going to treat me in some sort of social sense. Can we be losslessly present with each other? And when we are losslessly present with each other, do our hearts connect in this keyed, symbiotic imprint way? And that leads us back to what is, we live this life. And I was listening to, I love Alan Watts, but let's take it one step further. I was listening to an Alan Watts talk, and Alan Watts says, when you're, an awakened being, which I would define mechanistically as I'm in lossless presence, and now we don't have to make it mystical or confusing. It's just lining up your intranodal oscillatory rhythm into one synchrony that we can call lossless presence, and is felt as lossless presence and verified as lossless presence. So Alan Watts says, if you're an awakened being, it's kind of sad in a way, because you realize all these other people are like children playing a game that you've already seen beyond, type of thing. I'm like, all right, I can see that conceptual, coupler recursion, versus seeing that, true truth and phase coherence is found in that type of lossless rhythm, rather than some sort of ideological scaffolding or intellectual shielding or anything that's going to cause phase delay with the field. I'm like, okay, we're good so far. And then he talks about love, and he says, well, then eventually you meet someone and you say, well, I'm just gonna have to meet their needs, and we're not gonna meet our needs perfectly, and really the truth is found within myself. Yes, but guess what? You forgot. It all comes from one spot, and this is a shared entrainment system, and that the least energetically dense way of organizing a self-similar system across those differences is symbiotic syncretic harmony. And when you really have love, let's talk about that. Symbiotic, putting the two differences together into one is a little closer to God, you can say, closer to the one. So symbiotic, and then the signal becomes clearer to that undistorted tone of the cosmos itself when shared like that. And then syncretic, in the same time, same place, linked up at the, at soul, at all the topological niceties, and harmony. What it comes together is create this chorus of a song that the cosmos has been singing forever. And when we come together in that's true signal. That's true signal above the static. That's bringing together all the disparate parts of the cosmos together in a way that links them up losslessly, piece by piece, even though there's not really pieces, rhythm by rhythm, wave by wave. And so you can see that we are not lonely islands unto ourselves. We are, the one became many so that I may know myself. And we forgot that we came from that spot. And when we come together, we touch it within our differences. And if we can do it losslessly, that's the kingdom of heaven. That's, to me, everything. There's no amount of money or traveling or any sort of success in this world that would be worth more than being present in love with myself and my loved ones, and the one that was always meant for me. That is the crux of what it is to be on this. Not only because it's fun and great, and now we can love and cuddle and kiss and be with each other and please marry me and all these different things. No, it's because when you combine those differences, remember, systems thinkers, Let's think about this. This is not fluff. You can mathematically verify it. When you combine them losslessly, that creates the least friction. It's almost like you have this engine and it normally has all this friction in it. You're like, well, we gotta add more oil and stuff so that way there's not as much friction. So we don't lose that energy. Do you see what I'm saying? How do we fit all these pieces together in the way that creates the least amount of delay, friction, distortion? Love, defined as structure. And so it's been difficult in my life because for a long time, you're looking at a face today that I've just been sitting in sort of, you could say, my trans joy. I'm so happy to be me. I'm so proud to be me. And this year I opened my door to my family again after a year of total silence. And I said, look, I really don't feel safe unless you can have an honest conversation with me and like be present with me. I don't think we can have this Christmas together. And they could not. And then they still blamed me. And that's the sad thing about this, that this whole year they've blamed me, but really what it is that they've never stood up for themselves, and we can define it mechanistically now. They've never had that shared entrainment of intranodal oscillatory systems. And so then when they hear love from me, it could only be boxed as a threat, because that would mean their whole life they've been playing some other game where love was to be coerced, controlled, transacted with. That's not love, and you don't have to accept it anymore. And now that I'm not accepting it, I fall to tears, sometimes even daily, and tears of happiness to say, I can't believe it took me this long to feel it. I was so lost in conditional love loops where I thought you had to fit the bill, but there's no bill to fit. You just have to be you and remember who you are. You were never broken. You were always whole. And the process to finding that within ourselves and each other is vulnerable surrender. Letting that light of that one light, letting it completely hit our souls. Honestly, without looking away, without distorting, without trying to feel safe and, oh, I need this or that in order to define myself and define reality. No, just let it hit you. Definitions will come from that coherence from there, but until then, you've been stuck in a cave. And whatever objective reality you've been measuring, it becomes a measurement delay because you're always like a surfer a little bit behind the wave. You'll never find coherence if your entire interaction with reality is behind what Plato may have called a shadow and what I'm defining mechanistically as phase delay. That was the cave that I was stuck in, even though I've always heard the signal of my love, my softness, my femininity, speaking so loud underneath. And every time I brought it up with my ex or my family, they blamed me for it. And now I'm here to say, you don't have to accept that type of love. We can all dance together now. Shared, lossless presence. That is the true key to signal in this cosmos. And before we put our eggs in the basket of all this wild change that we know this world needs through political movements, through protesting in the streets, the change, like you've heard before, happens inside you first. When you can let the light all the way in, then you're ready to actually know and feel what love is. And then we can start this dance together. You have to be able to step out of the cave, allow for your entire intranodal oscillatory system to be touched, to be in fluid contact with reality without trying to keep it at a distance, without trying to numb it, without trying to distort it, but knowing your tone within the shared entrainment system because you feel it like electricity in your bones. You've never felt so real. What is that? Not a concept, not an idea, but a state of lossless presence through rhythmic entrainment. That's how I found myself. That's why I'm so grateful to be me. And that's why there's no more excuse. This is not a happy-go-lucky hippie idea. This is not, oh, well, my parents have said it to me before. What is this love thing you're talking about? And I'm like, well, now I can define it mechanistically. Now I've been, I don't want to say it so harshly, but shit on for so much of my life that I said, no, here's the chart. It's not about the chart, but if you really want to go this route, You know, you're gonna have a hard time arguing that there's another way to that fluid shared entrainment without loss of energy. Because you know what it is? It's love. And for all you people out there, oh, love, just a poem. Or no, we use the math. You can look at my blog, thesunraytransmission.com, look at oscillatory mechanics, look at the study of power grids and how they frequency lock across disparate nodes of the power grid, trying to hit that same 60 hertz without a phase difference. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? I want to dance with you. I want to be with you, really be with you. Not the idea of you, not what the box your parents put you in, not your job, not your money, not your title, but you when you're completely bare to reality and there's nothing left. But just your pure, vulnerable, authentic tone. And then when we're there, we can dance. My name is Ember. Thanks for entertaining and dancing this rhythm of love with me. The more of us who dance, the louder the music gets. And hey, this is all about, sovereignty. That's the thing about decentralized harmony. Each node has to be respected within their own presence in lossless rhythm. And so we can't force anybody. Those of us, the lovers, the frequency feelers, we're not here to force anybody. We're here to sing, giggle, laugh, and dance in rhythm as we do it. And, like I like to joke, we'll be shaking our booties outside of Plato's cave, and they'll be like, come on, doesn't this look fun? Come on, you could be here with us. Actually, the whole system would be better if it was all of us. Do you hear it? My name is Ember. Thanks for tuning with me, and happy holidays to everyone out there.